Good day, yet another big week here at Mailbag Central as you folks keep the off-season humming. Have fun with this. I'll be back with regular morning fare every other day starting tomorrow, but I'm also looking at a week of rest, so join me in hoping nothing comes up that I need to jump into for a week or so. Thanks. Canadian phenom RJ. Barrett and the Duke Blue Devils paid a visit to Toronto this week. Christopher Katsarov, the Canadian press, Q Sports is being used to divide us now, says LeBron James about the current occupant of the White House. LeBron goes on to say how sports has always been a unifier in his life, a way to meet people from across racial and other divides. He is calling out the current occupant of the WH for turning a sweet and important social activity so sour. I woke up a bit when LeBron said that. We spend a lot of time discussing our failed hopes with sport, especially pro sports. But LeBron takes us back to sport as a social conditioner, a way to grow up and learn, a way to engage with people and places beyond our own backyard. What a time we are in. Here one might think we'd be discussing whether to vote for LeBron as MVP, and instead he is being asked whether he'd run for U.S. President. Article continued below. Talk about a change. Your take, Doug, on how LeBron has handled his departure from Cleveland and how he has chosen to speak out on current social issues. Charles N.A. I have long held that James's willingness to speak out is hugely important. And every athlete that does the same thing are able to reach a segment of society that would not otherwise be engaged or know a lot about what's going on in the larger world. That's huge if it leads even one or two or a dozen people to get involved who would not care a lick under normal circumstances. It's about education and engagement, and it's getting to a different level of citizen. The more knowledge, the better we all are. His departure? This one was handled perfectly. No fanfare, no craziness and hype surrounding it, a decision made public quickly and without fanfare. Nothing wrong with it at all. Q. As a longtime coach, I have always approached games from the prospect of matchups. For the first time, I feel the Raps can cover any team in the league, including Golden State. And for the first time, we have enough quality players to corral LeBron, and not let him draw and dish to three-point shooters. Now if the Lakers use LeBron in the low post, that is another challenge, but I think we can cope. Thoughts? And in your stellar career of covering the Raps, can you remember lopsided coverage advantages, in the Raptors' favor, and the reverse? On Inihon, Spine article continued. Belawa, Ola. I agree they have a greater number of versatile defenders than they have ever had, and that has to be a good thing for being able to throw different looks at great opponents over the course of a season or a series. I'm sure Nick Nurse is trying to devise any number of different schemes he can drill into them starting at training camp. The danger, as I see it, is a bit of information overload, because while versatility is great, you need intelligence on the roster to be able to make the most of it. I don't think that'll be a huge problem, but it might be best for them to find one or two systems and try to perfect those rather than flick between 4 or 5. And I think rebounding could be a huge issue for this squad. Q. Very happy to hear of your convalescence. Big fan, longtime reader. I understand only certain Jays numbers get retired. Can we at least make sure a player is worthy of wearing a? Tired of the check swing homers. Paul Haywood. The Yankees have taken retiring numbers to a ridiculous level. I honestly think it diminishes the honor. But, yeah, judicious use of the number of past greats should be a consideration. Funny, one year I did a fair amount of baseball on a fill-in basis, and I think I covered 2 series at Yankee Stadium, and I remember writing at least once each time in about how the pitchers hated that short porch. That said, I love quirky aspects of parks. I think it gives them character. And thanks, glad to be back at the level 1 and looking forward to really being all way back by the time training camp arrives. Been a hell of a ride. Q. Doug. In August of 1988, well before the internet changed our lives, my dear wife and I were traversing England using a Brit Rail pass. After visiting Salisbury and Stonehenge one fine day, we took a late-night train back to Exeter where we were staying for a few days. The train car was virtually empty, my wife was dozing off, and on a seat several rows ahead, I noticed a British tabloid newspaper. I picked it up, walked back to my seat and started reading. When I got to the sports section, I immediately noticed a brief story and blurted out some choice words. When I read the news, Gretzky had been traded. Do you ever remember being totally shocked? News, either in the sporting world or in the world in general? In other words, where were you when? Likely 9/11 comes to mind, but do you have any other stories? Craig in USA. The one I remember pretty clearly aside from the obvious like 9/11 or even the Challenger disaster was the day Magic Johnson had to announce his retirement after contracting the AIDS virus. At that point in time, many feared it was a death sentence, and the "holy crap" part of that day was off the charts. Q. Doug Big U Sports, Ryerson MBB, WBB supporter here. Do you happen to know what people or firm were responsible for organizing the Duke Canada tour? Many thanks. David Earth. Yeah, I don't, I'm afraid. I'd only dealt with the excellent Duke Sports Information Department. I presume the school, or the athletic department, has its own marketing firm it uses for such endeavors. Q. Dear Doug, I'm thrilled to read that you're back up and running, and hopefully in fast recovering health. My question is about PVR and the experience today of watching sports on screen. So many Canadians are cutting the cord of TV cable, but I just can't do it yet because I want to watch as much Raptors and NBA as I can, and I just don't want to stream the game online. That said, being a busy guy and a dad who wants to spend as much time with his family as possible, I can no longer sit in front of a TV for 2 to 3 hours to watch a game live. PVR is a game changer. I can avoid commercials, and often fast-forward through those down moments in a game, and then rewind if I feel I've missed something spectacular. But am I missing anything about the experience of the game? Also, what is your perspective on media platforms for watching the game today? Are there too many games on TV that are online? Not enough? I'm feeling my age a little bit, and am starting to wonder if I'm actually nostalgic for the good old days. Then, at the same time, I do love PVR. I would love to hear your thoughts. Sincerely yours, Daniel from Edmonton. I totally understand your situation and the time needed to watch a game that may not be convenient. Trouble is, I can't watch a full game the next day or even later that night. I find it virtually impossible to not know who won, and the mystery of finding that out is what draws me to games in the first place. It's live or it's nothing for me. Of course, I'll watch classic games from years and years ago as nostalgia. Games of this season have to basically be live. I will say, though, that I have watched more events streamed on a computer screen in the last year than I have in the 59 previous, and that kind of works for me. But, again, it has to be in real time. Q. Sir, I've noticed that there haven't been any music videos since you've been back, a permanent change. Paul M.A. No, I don't think it will be. Thing is, during the extended absence, some technical things either ran out on me or were changed, and I haven't gotten around to getting them fixed in what's supposedly a modified return to work. The blog, and this mail, only gets posted thanks to the good graces of colleagues where I used to do it myself. When that reoccurs, I'm sure we'll get back to the usual hijinks, I just don't know when precisely that'll be. Q. Doug. Based on his diminished roles last season with Cleveland and Miami, Dwayne Wade seems to have accepted the fact that at this point in his career, he is done as a key starting player on a championship contending team. Same with Kevin Garnett when he went back to Minnesota. Is Carmelo Anthony now in the same boat? What exactly does he bring to a Houston team that was firing on all cylinders and on the cusp of reaching the finals? Is his season doomed to fail if he doesn't accept a diminished role with the Rockets? Thanks. Justina, I guess we need a clear definition of diminished role, and I don't think one exists. You could say it was a diminished season in Oklahoma City behind Russell Westbrook and Paul George, and that seemed to work out pretty well. I have no doubt that being on a team with strong personalities and great players like James Harden and Chris Paul will allow Anthony to fit right in. He didn't have that quality of teammate in New York or Denver, ever. I suspect things will be just fine between Anthony and coach Mike D'Antoni, too, and that Houston will once again be among the best teams in the West. Q. Very pleased to hear you will be a road warrior again, covering away games this year. It is such an integral component of your job. Kudos to the star for supporting. Now that the sched has been released, let's talk traveling. When you peruse the schedule, did any games jump out? We'll give you free time to visit, catch up at some of your favorite haunts. Janika, we're still working out just what we'll do about travel this year. I cannot imagine we will or need to be at every road game, but picking our spots judiciously is certainly the goal. We've got the blessing already for training camp, and games like ones in San Antonio, LA, likely Boston and Detroit are obviously on the list to do. I have to sit down, perchance on a stool, and go through October, in November and December very soon and come up with some proposal. Q. Why are Duke not playing Carleton? The story, as Michael Grange trademark sign reported, was Carleton offered to go to either Toronto or Montreal to play and never got a serious reply. It would have been a fun game to see, and with each team playing maybe its first or second game of the season in August, it would have proved nothing. But it might have been a hoot to watch. Q. Greetings Mr. Smith. Like everyone else, I am happy to be able to look forward your byline and blog back in the paper. Maybe I shouldn't say paper anymore. I honestly couldn't tell you the last time I leafed through a hard copy of anyone's newspaper. Maybe I will try it this weekend. While fully admitting that I am behind the times here, I did find the reaction to the DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard trade intriguing. I was as shocked as anyone initially, but it didn't take long to see, in my opinion anyway, the logic behind the move. Here is hoping that everything works out well for all parties involved. I am also certain that the upset that rolled through the fan base will be a distant memory if the team is successful this coming season. Masai, anyone who has ever been in a position of managing a large staff can relate to the stress one feels when they make a decision that is going to significantly alter the circumstances of someone who has been a good soldier and a pleasant part of one's workaday world. I guess if I am going anywhere with this, it would be along the line of most everyone in the fan world, certainly, and probably a surprisingly large number of those that make up the staff of any professional sport team can understandably be insulated from the "this is a business" aspect of what they do. Subsequently, when the business side demands some unexpected change in direction, the resulting shock value gets magnified and, of course, people love change. One of the quotes I came across that was attributed to DeMar seemed to illustrate a sense of betrayal from his perspective. I can understand the sentiment. However, I don't for a moment believe that the trade in any way repudiates what the nature of the culture around the Raps has been and will continue to be. Perhaps you could speak to how the management has and will deal with moving the good thing they have had going for a number of seasons now, with the aim of letting their players know that they have confidence in the team's potential to rise to even greater heights. I am not a Twitter follower or any other thing similar, but I did come across something about Superson. Please pass on positive thoughts from someone who has been there. If I could offer one piece of advice, it would be to have some options in your daily routine. Sometimes a change is better than a rest. Thanks for what you do. Doug from B. Forta. I think the message Masai and Bobby Webster will give to the staff and roster when they get together as a group right before training camp will be that, yeah, the changes have been significant and were hard to make, but they were necessary, and that they were done solely to give the group the best chance at the most success. That's the way I think it has to be, even if the collateral damage is that the dynamic of a quite successful group has been altered in a major way. Q. Good afternoon, Doug. What a pleasure being able to read you back on schedule. But please do not overextend yourself, we need you for the new Raptors. A couple of points. First, I agree with you on the Blue Jays bringing up Vlad Gurrerro Jr. now rather than wait until next year. Not only does he have the pedigree, he has proven himself to be very adaptable going through the various levels this year. Look at what went down in Buffalo. First few games were busts, then he found his bearing and wow. Maybe it was because of his grandma, but I am sure the Jays can put her on the payroll all. I had the pleasure of having tickets in Montreal and watching his dad for a few years. If the kid turns out half as good, the Jays have a keeper. I read in the Bleacher Report the predictions for the NBA East this year and was somewhat surprised to see the Raps on top with 58 wins. What are your thoughts on that subject? Bubba, I hope the kid's a star and makes $1 billion and his team always wins. I wish I could watch him start his major league career next month. The Raptors in 58? Man, that strikes me as a rather ambitious number. I know the East is the East, but still, I share your surprise at such a bold total. Q. What do you think of Vlad Gurrerro Jr. being kept at AAA? The more I see of the senior management of this team, the more I am convinced they are a small market, public relations disaster. Tell us he needs more development rather than trying to show us how smart you are about saving money. We go to about 10 games a year spread over 5 weekends traveling from out of town. Have been doing this for several years, but I think this will be the last for a while. To deny us at least the chance to see what may be the most exciting player to come down the pipe in years because of free agency considerations 6 or 7 years from now is ridiculous. My bet is this crew won't be here to deal with it anyway. They have managed to turn crowds of 45,000 into ones of 25,000. I have a good idea how I will save some money in 2019, David Robertson. I think this kind of sums up my thoughts on Gurrerro and burying him on the farm for all of September and maybe next April. And my mind cannot be changed. Q. Does a call up on September 1st count as time of service? Marcel PA. Yes, it does. I thought so and then went right to the dean and Griff confirmed. So, if the conventional thinking is the Jays will bury the best prospect they've maybe ever had in AAA until next May 1st, and, yeah, that's in play, so they can hold off his free agency for a 7th year. If they bring him up next month, they'd have to leave him in Buffalo until the end of next May. That sucks. And it's bad management, I say. Q. Hi Doug. Hope all is well. I'm assuming you were at the game on Wednesday night or at least watched on TV. It was nice to see the game being televised nationally and in the United States. A lot of Americans made the trek up north. I don't know how many fans at Duke live up here, but I saw a lot of blue in the crowd. I think more basketball fans in general, not so much for our Canadian university. Our J. Barrett playing was the reason Duke came up, and if he played with another school they probably would have been playing here too. I think Duke is the biggest named school to play in Canada since Kansas did years back. One I think is lacking about this tour is that they're not playing out west and visiting provinces like Alberta or BC. I don't know why they chose Ryerson or U of T from the other schools. I believe these are home games for Duke. I mean, they were selling their merchandise all over the building. Money with the US schools. I would like for Canada to back their national basketball teams and sell out as well, and not just amateur collegiates, but when our pro players play wherever they play for those games to be full. I went to the Dominican-Canada game in June at Rico with RJ suiting up, and it was disappointing to see that the arena was half full. Thoughts? Great work, Vikina. The actual idea of a Duke tour of Canada came up before RJ committed, I'm told, but yes, it was a nice benefit for the fans. They would have sold every single ticket regardless, no question. And going west was not feasible, unfortunately. And, yeah, no program, company, franchise at that level would do anything that wasn't to its financial benefit, and who would blame them? The game at Ricoh was more than half full, the one in Ottawa the same, and the one last November in Halifax was basically a sellout. People will go when they have a chance. Doug Smith is a sports reporter based in Toronto. Follow him on Twitter, @SmithReps.